Hey folks, what's up? Welcome back to the channel. I'm trying something new today. I'm trying standing. We'll see how that goes. It seems fun. I've been watching Philip DeFranco do the whole standing thing and figured I'd give it a shot. Anyway, about a week ago, Disney announced that Turning Red, the newest Pixar film, would be going straight to Disney+. This is the third in a row for Pixar, even though Disney proper has been sending movies back since last June with Jungle Cruise and even lately with Encanto, Marvel with Black Widow, Shang-Chi, and of course Spider-Man No Way Home, and Star Wars has just been really making TV shows lately, and honestly, they're doing great. They're in their element, let them be. This also isn't anything new for the rest of the media landscape. I mean, Warner Brothers released their entire 2021 slate of films day and date on HBO Max. Granted, that's not a formula they're going to be sticking with for the foreseeable future. I think they're doing something like 10 HBO Max exclusives and then the rest have 45-day theatrical releases. But, I mean, with COVID, who knows, right? Basically, all that's to say that we're kind of at a point as a general audience where the theatrical experience just isn't as important as it used to be. But let's dive a little deeper. First things first, this video is going to be divided into 3 parts. First, we're going to be focusing on the statistics regarding streaming and theatrical releases. Then we're going to look at the shift in consumer culture that both has happened and will continue to happen. And then finally, what I believe is the best way forward for the film industry as a whole. Or at least the starting point for that conversation. So with all that in mind, let's look at some graphs. Woo, let's go graphs! I fucking love statistics. The first thing I want to address is obviously Pixar sending Turning Red straight to streaming, and the data that probably influenced that decision. Besides this data and stuff, obviously. So with that in mind, here's a graph showing the last 3 Pixar releases. We have Luca, Soul, and over here's Onward. I know it's not that big, but I saw it. I saw it before the pandemic hit, so I'm in this little hump somewhere. And then the first movie I saw back in theaters was Peter Rabbit 2. I never saw the first one. I just thought it'd be funny to say the first movie I saw back after the pandemic was Peter Rabbit 2. I guess it's a good thing the pandemic isn't actually over, because that would be kind of stupid now that I'm thinking about it. Anyway, the point of this chart is basically to show that Pixar movies have been seen by and talked about by more people since adopting the straight-to-streaming model. And sure, maybe you can argue that quality has something to do with those numbers. I mean, personally, I enjoyed both Luca and Soul significantly more than Onward, but the numbers are just way too far apart for that to be the only case. And Pixar isn't the only studio seeing these kinds of numbers either. Let's take a look at Disney proper, more specifically Encanto. Now on this chart there are 2 major spikes. The first is November 25th, which is the day after Encanto had launched in theaters, and then December 25th, aka Christmas Day, aka the day after Encanto launched on Disney+. By the way, it launched for free. I don't know if you knew that. I feel like everyone who has Disney Plus knows that. It was a free movie. It was completely straight to streaming for free. Unlike Raya, which we can add here, you can barely tell, but she's there. She's there, and there's the streaming release when it was finally made free. It's there. You can just barely tell. Now, Encanto did have a theatrical release, whereas Raya was just premiere access, and then I think it was 3 months later was launched for free, whereas Encanto was launched only 30 days after while the word of mouth was still strong, basically allowing for this massive spike as accessibility immediately increased. And so you might be thinking, well then there's your answer. Have a 1-month exclusive theatrical run, and then drop the movie for free on Disney+. Or whatever streaming service you're using, I guess. But the thing is, there's one little tiny indie movie that just messes with that whole thing. Of course, we're talking about Spider-Man No Way Home. I mean, let's just add it to the chart real quick. The hype for this movie was bigger than Encanto at its theatrical release. That's insane. That doesn't make sense. However, Spider-Man, the movie that grossed easily $1.5 billion, was only 30% more popular than Encanto at each of their peaks. Does that mean that Encanto's a $1 billion movie? No. In fact, it only grossed $250 million or something. I say only as if that's not a lot of money, but still. Ultimately, my take on No Way Home is that Spider-Man, much like the Avengers films that came before it, was very much an event film that people were anticipating to see in theaters. It was a social event rather than just a regular movie-going experience. Does that mean I should just write it off as this random outlier on the charts? Absolutely not. But I do think it's a really important note. I also want to add that Encanto, even with its significantly lower box office numbers, is gonna absolutely kill it in merchandising. I mean, they've got Lego sets, they've got obviously like, you know, the regular dolls and shirts and stuff, and just like everything else, the dolls, the play sets, whatever, it's gonna make a shit ton in merchandise. I mean, obviously so is Spider-Man, but like my point is that the flop for Encanto, just isn't as detrimental. You wanna know what flop is pretty detrimental though? Steven Spielberg's West Side Story. Let me tell you, the word of mouth for this movie was insane. People were hyping it up left and right, and I firmly believe it's probably one of the best movies of the year. But I still haven't seen it. But you know what I did see? Tick Tick Boom, because it launched for free on Netflix. And I know a lot of you did too, because just look at these charts right here. The data backs it up. Like I said, I can't make my own opinions about West Side Story because I just haven't seen it yet. And honestly, I wouldn't be shocked if it was significantly better than Tick Tick Boom. But none of that matters if no one sees the damn thing. Now, Encanto was a bit of an exception for Disney in that, much like Warner Brothers, Disney's also looking for about 45 days of an exclusive theatrical release, but I'm gonna say it, I think that's a bit much. Now, West Side Story could be going to Disney Plus within the next week or two, and if that happens, I'm sure I'll watch it and sing its praises, but we're going into prime Oscar season, and the movie everyone's talking about is Tick Tick Boom. Because that's the one everyone has seen. And that's not even necessarily because Tick Tick Boom's the better movie. I mean, Tick Tick Boom has an 88% on Rotten Tomatoes, whereas West Side Story has a 93%. And sure, you can talk about the logistics of Rotten Tomatoes and all that kind of stuff, but there's at least some data to prove that West Side Story is at least generally a better movie. But let's take a step back from Disney and musicals and the whole current landscape of film, because honestly, a lot of it can probably just be boiled down to people don't want to risk COVID, and that's totally fair. But even with all that said, there is still an entire category of films that we can look at that have all but disappeared from theaters over the last 10 years. The mid-budget comedy. I'm talking movies like Elf, Step Brothers, Ted, pretty much any Will Ferrell or Adam Sandler movie. Now sure, we can debate the quality of Adam Sandler's library of films any day of the week, but the thing a lot of these movies have in common is that they found their success not in the box office, but on DVD sales and cable licensing rights. Now with Will Ferrell, it's a tiny bit different, but still mostly holds. Step Brothers grossed $128 million at the box office. Anchorman grossed $90. Elf made $224 million. But Happy Gilmore, my personal favorite Adam Sandler movie, made like $45 million. And yeah, these are lower budget films, so they don't have to make $1 billion to turn a profit, but that's not really the point. I mean, a few years ago, Netflix paid Adam Sandler $250 million for a 6-movie deal, because Netflix realizes that Adam Sandler is significantly more valuable at home than he is at the box office. So why even worry about dealing with theatrical releases when you can just send them straight to streaming and get that audience for late night comedies right on your platform immediately? I think ultimately what audiences and honestly studios have to realize is that straight to streaming is not the same as direct to DVD. And at the end of the day, it really should be about accessibility instead of just box office numbers. Which ultimately begs the question, what's more important? The size of the audience or the size of the box office? Honestly, that's a question that doesn't really have a direct answer anyway. For studios like Pixar or DreamWorks, I'd argue that audience is way more important than box office because the potential for merchandising and toy revenue far surpasses that of your box office. But this brings us right back to West Side Story. This was a $100 million movie, but it's not really something that you can just recoup the losses on from merchandise and toy sales. It's simply a piece of film as art. And I definitely don't want the lesson from West Side Story to be don't give $100 million budgets to non-franchise films, because recognizing and celebrating film as art is important. But it also only made $44 million at the box office. I mean, no company wants to have a loss that big, and because of the way streaming works, spending $100 million on a movie only to take it straight to streaming, for free mind you, will never feel like a good enough return on investment, no matter how it impacts subscriber data. So, where do we go from here? Well, Pixar has their answer, and Marvel has theirs, and Warner Brothers and Universal are still trying to figure out what the question actually is, but Netflix answered that question 10 years ago, and everyone else is just catching up. The future of film just isn't in theaters. The movie theater is a place of social gathering, not of artistic appreciation. And that's okay. From my perspective, media can be appreciated just fine on a television screen, on a computer, or honestly, even on your phone, which is probably where most of you are watching this. And personally, I've always been of the mindset that media, that art in general, is made to be appreciated, not just to make money. Also, Marvel movies are art, and everyone who works on them is an artist, and if you can't feel the love and the passion in Spider-Man, then go outside and touch grass or something, I don't know. Just grow up. Well, that's pretty much all I had to say. Let me know what you think about the whole thing in the comments down below. This is a conversation that honestly really interests me, so I just wanted to, talk about it a little bit, hopefully get some of your feedback on it. I don't know. I just really want to talk about it because it just fascinates me. But yeah, have a great rest of your day. I'll see you all next time. Peace.